What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Please hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Leave your comments and likes. You can also leave your comments and likes on Facebook and follow us on iTunes and Spotify. I'm Metal Dave, along with my co-host Jason McMaster. Today, we are going to slow things down a bit and talk about power ballads. They seem to be mandatory in the 1980s if you were a band trying to get on the radio. We're all familiar with some of the big hits from that era, but they existed before then and after then, and we'll talk about some of our favorites here in just a bit. But first, Jason, what's going on with you since we last spoke?
Not a lot. Hope everybody's doing good. I had breakfast with a bunch of friends, had breakfast with our producer Jared and some old friends, and it was awesome. And like Jared was kind of commenting a minute ago, it was good to see some familiar faces. Sans mask. I mean, there were masks, but we're eating. So
Right.
So that was kind of interesting and kind of exciting. Just it's the little things, right?
Yeah,
Just
right.
get to see what your friends really look like.
Yeah.
And not a whole lot. I was, planning to finish up some more writing for a project this week. So just more of the same. As you can know, I'm just routine, working on music, working, period. I'm a busy guy. Those people who know me personally know I'm a busy guy. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, cool.
What about you? What's up with you?
Well, my son just acquired, he just recently got, I don't know what you would call it. You can help me out here. It is the Metallica Ride the Lightning LP box set, I guess you would call it.
Let's call it I call those box sets, but it's sort of like an anniversary. I want to say those were almost like it was like a bicentennial flag of approval or some kind of I don't know what they're. Yeah, I don't know what it was. A reissue, a remastered celebratory reissue of the first 4 Metallica records or something like that.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who has the Justice one. I have the Killa and the Kill 'Em All and the Lightning one, and Dash, your son, now has the Lightning one.
Yeah, that's it. It's a commemorative box set of some sort with.
But it has CDs.
It's got CDs and multiple LPs as well. And then it comes with a lot of little extras. There's a really cool hardcover book included, and it's kind of like a picture book, but it's also got some storytelling in it. And my son was really excited to see your name all over it. Jason is included in the Ride the Lightning picture book. There's a handwritten note from James Hetfield to Jason.
It's a 4-page letter. It took James probably some time to write.
Yeah, it is. It's like 4 pages spread across the book, handwritten by James Hetfield to my co-host Jason McMaster. And
I have that just for the record. I have that letter hermetically sealed among other letters in a frame on the wall above my office at my desk with the Kill 'Em All tour set list.
Yeah, it was a really nice package. It's really well done. I've only seen the one album, the Ride the Lightning version. That's my son's favorite album, period, and definitely his favorite Metallica record. So we were kind of enjoying last night some of the live recordings that are part of this box set. They're recorded on LP. They're also included on CD, but we were enjoying the records last night, and it was really cool hearing some of those live performances from 84, 85. 85 is the year that I first saw Metallica on the Ride the Lightning tour. So it's really cool to hear them playing that early stuff. They play it even faster than they play it on the studio recording. and the band just sounds really raw and hungry. And it was kind of exciting to hear that stuff again, because if you were to go see Metallica in concert today, of course, they wouldn't be able to play so much material from those early records. That's all they had at the time, so they were heavily dependent on those tracks. Whereas today you'd have to hear stuff from Justice and the Black Album and all, and that's fine, but I really like the concentration on that 84, 85, 83 time period. So, yeah, that kept us entertained last night, and the book is really cool. It was a bit pricey. I think my son paid $150 for it.
I think that's the normal going. That's why I was nervously asking can I ask what he paid for that? I think that's what they were going for. My submissions for the print got me free copies, because at some point I drank the punch and signed up for the fan club stuff. So there's mass, form emails that come by way of whoever's running their fan club. It's probably a bot of some kind. Yeah, I mean, it's hefty. It's like Dave's holding up the box. It's hefty. And I'm sure a lot of our people who listen and watch the show, they have those.
That's heavy, dude.
Yeah, it's heavy. So I got copies. I got copies of the Kill 'Em All and the Lightning, because I submitted the form email was by way of, hey, we're doing this special thing coming up in about a year from now, and we're reaching out to people who, if you have flyers and photos and letters and blah blah blah, or stories, tell us all about it, and we'll remember you somehow. Well, that's how they remembered me. I came home from work one day and those boxes were sitting on my porch.
Well, I've only seen the one, but if this one's any indication, they're really well done and very, very cool.
Crazy cool.
Some of the extra stuff, like I said, the live recordings from 84 and 85 are pretty special to hear.
I think my favorite part is the coffee table books.
Yeah, the book is really well done. It really is. And for our listeners, my son Dash, of course, knows Jason, so he really got a kick out of seeing your name included in this Metallica box set. He just thinks that's super cool.
not as cool as I thought it was.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's pretty cool too. So There you go.
But that's awesome that's good parenting.
Yeah. Let's move into our topic today. We are talking about power ballads. All of us are familiar with them. They were a big deal in the 80s. As I said at the top of the episode, they were almost mandatory in the 80s. If you were a rock and roll band trying to get on the radio, the formula was you released your single and it was a rocker, and then your second or third release to the radio was going to be a power ballad. And but again, power ballads, they probably didn't have the term power ballad, maybe in the 70s. But those types of songs did exist, and we'll talk a little bit about those. I want to start off by saying, at least for me, we're all aware of the big hits that Bon Jovi and Skid Row and Motley Crue had, probably the gigantic one, Home Sweet Home. We're familiar with the Cinderella power ballads, the Poisons, the LA Guns, the Faster Pussycat, all great songs. I like all that stuff. I'm a sucker for all that stuff. But I'm going to dig a little bit deeper today with some of my choices. So I just wanted to sort of set the stage there as far as my perspective. But Jason, and first of all, I was thinking about this. How do we even define a power ballad? Is it a song about heartbreak and lost love and longing, or is it simply a song that has a slower pace and a quieter vibe? Is it about the message, or is it about the sound? What do you think?
I love the question so much. Now, to keep harping on Metallica and staying in that realm, because I can talk about Metallica for years. I can talk about Metallica every day. So, Fade to Black is a power ballad. Okay? So
Yeah.
Fade to Black is about either wanting to die or thinking about death or being obsessed with death or saying goodbye, or right, it's a lot of things. So from I'll just say a thrash band, Metallica is pretty much a rock band at this point, but when they were young and full of piss and vinegar, they wrote about thrashing and headbanging and uh, such juvenile things, and I still love juvenile things, and so therefore I love that era of Metallica. And I think that your question, you're kind of nailing every aspect of what could be considered a power ballad, but I think that it's arguable, and some people are going to say that it's, when you say power ballad, it's defining something from the 80s, and they won't let it be anything else. In some people's heads, they're stuck on the idea of it being, a song by White Lion or something like that, or Every Rose Has Its Thorn or something like that. I'm going to throw the frisbee across the park right now. Free Bird is a power ballad.
Yeah.
And it's probably, arguably, if not the best, one of the best goddamn power ballads you're going to find.
Yeah.
And Leonard Skinner was very, very, very good at that kind of a song. And to go with an aspect that you mentioned, when you kind of think about the whole idea, you said pace, where they turn the power down a little bit and lower the lights a little bit, and maybe sentimental, or just go dark, like Fade to Black. They're kind of going dark. They're not necessarily singing about, it's not really a love song or anything like that. And Free Bird isn't kind of a love song because it's about letting go.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The crazy thing is and we've talked about it on this show before, like April Wine in the late 70s with Just Between You and Me.
Yeah.
That is such a great song.
Yeah.
And you can go as far back to that. You can what do you think? Let's get your breath into the mic a little bit before I just take up all the oxygen.
No, I'm glad you went there, because I was sort of torn between, how do you define it? And I think that, people might have this perception that you described as being a White Lion song or a Warrant song or a White Snake song or something like that. But and you can't really fault them, because those types of songs came to such prominence during the 80s. So it's kind of a default position to think that these are things born of the 80s. But and a lot of those songs were love songs and heartbreak and that sort of thing. But if you go to back to the 70s, I'm glad you mentioned Freebird, because I was thinking of Dream On by Aerosmith, which is, you could also argue that that's a power ballad, but the sentiment in the song, the lyrics, it's more about self-reflection and questioning, your path in life and that sort of thing. It's very introspective. It's not about heartbreak or woe is me. And if you go back to the 70s, you realize that they weren't called power ballads at the time, but those types of songs were everywhere. Alice Cooper had Only Women Bleed. Black Sabbath had Changes. Aerosmith had Dream On. Nazareth had a huge hit with Love Hurts. So those songs were on the radio and they were out there and they were on the albums, but people didn't call them power ballads at the time. And then in the 80s, I think they kind of became a little more formulaic, maybe. But neither is right or wrong. I enjoy them all. So, yeah, I wanted to sort of I wanted to get your feeling as to whether or not you thought this was unique to the 80s, or if in fact it's the term maybe is unique to the 80s, but the type of song has been going on forever.
It's interesting. I want to jump in, and we were talking to Jared just the other day about how we need to do a German metal show or German thrash or remember we were thinking like that because some of our listeners are over in Europe, and hello to Germany. Yes. And hello to Europe. Anyone over there who's checking out Talk Louder. We need to cover, like, we could do a whole show on the Scorpions, and we could do like a Scorpions family tree, which is opening a can of worms that leads to other things. But we get to that when we do a Scorpions show. But I was going to say, much related to the Scorpions, of course, is UFO because of the Schenker brothers. But UFO, they would have, it was normal for them to have 2 or 3 sort of categoristic power ballads on each fucking record.
Yeah.
And then the Scorpions, they invented the power ballad. But I want to say something. I mean, arguably, right? And they've been doing sort of like almost spoken word, which is like sort of this ballady, like softer, ghosty kind of a. They've been doing things like that a long time. The Scorpions, right?
Yeah.
So, moody, right?
Yeah.
And probably some of my favorite, just by defaulted, we're calling these power ballads. Dude, I love how the Scorpions, and before Still Loving You, there was Always Somewhere, which is about being on the road.
Yeah.
There was When the Smoke is Coming Down. I think that's on Blackout. That song gives me chills.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that's a whole can of worms. The crazy thing is there's another Scorpions power ballad that I absolutely adore, called Always Somewhere. Did I already say that?
Yeah, he started.
Holiday. That's the one I was thinking about.
Yeah.
But Always Somewhere sounds like Freebird.
Yeah.
And I started with Freebird.
Yeah. It's the same type of sentiment, being on the road.
The melody is the same. The chord structure is the same, Dave.
And the guitar.
It's the same.
Yeah. Always Somewhere for, I'm glad you brought it up, because it's not only one of my favorite power ballads. For a number of years, it was my favorite song, period. I just love that song. Yeah. And the Scorpions are arguably the masters of the power ballad. You mentioned Always Somewhere. That guitar in that song is just weeping, man. I mean, just weeping. Yeah. And Klaus, of course, has that raspy, vulnerable quality to his voice. Nobody sings a power ballad better than Klaus Meine. And they've got him by the bucket load. You mentioned Still Loving You. There's Lady Starlight. There's,
oh my God.
There's In Trance. When the Smoke is Going Down. Holiday, of course. They are so good at it, and they're so convincing. None of their power ballads sound cheesy. They're just craftsmen. They're master craftsmen at the power ballad.
I'm going to go on a limb and say, when you think about, I don't want to put a timestamp on what I'm about to say, and I'm probably going to get shot at for this, but I really feel like any Scorpions power ballad, any of them, if you add the twang that would make it sound more Lynyrd Skynyrd, it would sound like a really cool country song.
Yeah,
it would translate very, very well. The blues aspect of it, because that's what you said, the guitars sound like they're weeping, and they're blues licks, and the tones they're getting and all that stuff. I mean, if you added, like lap steel and all that kind of stuff, and a little piano track, a little saloon piano track, and put a little bit of twang in the voice, it's a freaking country song.
Yeah, I
So
could.
just when if you have to have some kind of imagination or like music and exactly what we're talking about to be able to visualize that just by adding a couple of instruments and a couple of different tones maybe, but the song can stay exactly the same and it fits what we're talking about.
Yeah. Always Somewhere is just a dynamite song. I love that song. And it's because, I mean, it gives me goosebumps just because of the way the guitar sounds and the way Klaus sounds. And I mean, again, the Scorpions are arguably the masters of the power ballad. You brought up UFO, and there's another band that really does a great job with the so-called power ballads. And, you mentioned that sometimes they put more than one on a single album. And on the Lights Out record, the one that gets all the glory is Love to Love, which is a great, great, great song. I'm not going to take anything away from Love to Love, but on that same album, there's a song called Try Me that I think is equally as good as Love to Love. And it sort of gets overshadowed by Love to Love. It definitely doesn't get any radio play. But again,
Try
it's just,
Try Me, I think shows up on like fairly, it may be random, it may not be random because I don't know exactly what comp it's on, but there'd be like UFO greatest hits, and Try Me's on there.
yeah, they probably view it themselves as a band. They probably view it as one of their better songs, maybe. But my point was, it just didn't get the radio play or the exposure that Love to Love got. Love to Love is just a fantastic song, but
Right.
Try Me is really good as well.
Everybody gravitates to those, and I agree 100%. But I have to stand on my apple crate for a moment and say that the Obsession record, you still talking UFO,
Yeah,
Obsession, is kind of, in my opinion, UFO's peak record, you know?
yeah.
And I think that there's some kick-ass rockers on there, but what it is that the topic is today, I lean so heavy on the ballads that are on that record, and I think Looking Out for Number One. I don't know if you know that one.
I don't.
I think I Ain't No Baby is on there, and they're just incredible. And I Ain't No Baby sounds like a Led Zeppelin. It's got this drum groove, but then it just dives off the cliff. Um, and Looking Out for Number One, well, the Obsession record has a string section on multiple songs on it.
Yeah.
UFO was really good at that.
Yep.
And Scorpions, I think that kind of stuff came a little bit later for them when they started adding strings to things.
Yeah.
Like, an orchestra.
Right. Right. Right.
But UFO was ahead of them, and I don't know if it was synthesizers or if it was a real orchestra. It's hard to tell.
UFO has another song I want to throw in this mix that works well with this topic. On the Mechanics album, there's a song on there called Terry that is just a heartbreaker.
Ah.
That's a really, really good song.
Well, and not to one up you, but on the Obsession record, I believe is the song Cherry.
Oh, yeah.
The song Cherry?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know that.
Cherry and Terry. So there you go.
Yeah. Well, there you go. But UFO, much like the Scorpions, very comfortable in that lane, and they do it really well. And I think a key to all this is, you've got to have a singer that can emote convincingly. And Phil Mogg does the ballads as good as Klaus Meine. Those guys just really, they have a voice that's really tailored to that type of song. So I think that helps them stand out as being really, perfectionist at the whole power ballad thing.
But Klaus doing his thing makes it Scorpions, and they're not the same guy.
No. They definitely have their own distinct identities, but they are very convincing in their ability to emote in their own unique way is what I was getting at.
Of course.
I got another one that's
okay.
that I've always liked this song, and you don't usually associate this guy with power ballads, but I'm going to go with Glenn Danzig off the Lucifuge album. There's a song on that album called Blood and Tears, and it's very acoustic. And, you know, when Glenn wants to do his Elvis Presley thing, he can be quite the crooner, you know, and he does it on this song really well. And then by the end of the song, he's bellowing in such, you know, pain. He sounds like a wounded werewolf, and you just howling at the moon, you know. And he does some really good quiet stuff. There's a song on Danzig 3, I think it's called Sistina or something, Sistinas or something like that. But Blood and Tears off the Lucifuge album, I've always liked that song. That album is really strong, but that song stands out, and it's a power ballad. And you don't usually think of Glenn Danzig as a vulnerable power ballad kind of guy.
He's got, actually, I would agree with you. He's got quite a few things that I would still call power ballads. Super dark and like, I mean, he's like, I mean, the Prince of Darkness is kind of, you know, an overmuch term by now, because there's a lot of dark lords that, you know, from Alice Cooper to King Diamond to Ozzy Osbourne and Glenn Danzig, they could all fall under the flag of Prince of Darkness, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, it kind of cartoons it out for me. It doesn't really work anymore. But there is that song, and I probably have the record, Danzig. It's in the Hangover soundtrack, and it's the 13 on my back. And there's one called like Under My Black Wings or something like that.
Her Black Wings.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Her Black Wings. Thank you. And I love that stuff. I love that tone. I love where he's going with that. You could even throw in probably some things by Typo Negative that would feel the same way.
Yeah.
And I don't know titles. I have like 2 Typos records, and I have Bloody Kisses, and I may have one more. Anyway, they have that. But those guys are screaming power ballad, like pain and woe.
Yeah.
In the graveyard, you know, like it's very Hamlet. It's Shakespearean. All of that dark, moody, foggy kind of an attitude. It's incredible. You mentioned Alice Cooper, and when you think about Alice Cooper and you think about him doing "I Never Cry" and "Only Women Bleed" and things like that, it's the same to me as the Danzigs and you know what's the same to me? Elvis. It's the same, that dark sort of, you know, Johnny Cash, when he's singing about his pain and being on trial for something, it's the same. It's all the same to me. Yeah. It's a dark room these guys go into and bleed.
I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad you're bringing these names up and these songs, because again, it just goes to show. I think if people see this episode on YouTube and they see the title Power Ballads, they're going to assume that we're going to spend an hour talking about Poison and Bon Jovi and that sort of thing. And
yeah, but if they know you and I, they know that we're not necessarily, like, maybe not at all about Bon Jovi and Poison.
Right. And I'm okay with their versions of power ballads. I'm an 80s.
Me too, because I have to be. It wouldn't make sense for me to not say that I'm okay. I'm not okay with it, because I am.
Yeah. Here's another one that always gets me. I just think this song is just another one of those songs that just gives me chill. And as you're fond of saying, this song really paints a picture, and that is Borderline by Thin Lizzy. Mm-hmm. It's on the Johnny the Fox record. And that song and those lyrics, I mean, I can actually get a mental picture in my head when I'm listening to that song. I can see Phil sitting at the bar by himself with some cigarette smoke coming up out of the ashtray. It's closing time. he's drinking away his sorrows, and it just takes me there. I feel like I'm in the bar room with this guy, and he's just wallowing in his misery, and the song is just beautiful. And of course, anybody that pays attention to Thin Lizzy knows what a wordsmith Phil is. So if anybody's going to break your heart and tell a story, that guy can do it. And
stories to tell is what makes a good song anyway, but definitely what we're and we didn't coin the phrase obviously, but a power ballad. I like it's not changing gears, but it's talking about Phil Lynott and another Lizzy song is Sarah.
Yeah.
You know that song, Sarah?
Yeah.
It escapes me what record it's on right
now. Yeah, it escapes me as well.
Yeah, it's important to know what record it's on because I want people to check it out. But I want to say that was his daughter, right?
I think so.
Daughter or his wife.
Yeah, it was a woman in his life or a girl, and I think it is autobiographical in a sense. I think you're right. I think it's a tribute to his daughter.
Yeah, I think so.
And of course, Thin Lizzy has Still Loving You. I mean, they were another one of those bands, much like UFO and the Scorpions,
still in love with you.
Still in Love with You. I'm sorry, that you're right. But they are one of those bands, much like the Scorpions and UFO. When Phil decides to open a vein and bleed all over the place, you're going to drown, man.
Yeah, and the cool thing about Lizzy is it's obvious for Lizzy fans, they already know this, but they weren't afraid to do that song amidst all of their boogie woogie shit, all of their rocker shit.
Yeah.
And I mean, the Scorpions, of course, they could do a whole power ballad show.
Yeah.
And so could UFO.
Yeah.
But that would be cheating themselves out of a good time as well as their fans. But I'm sure the fans would not mind an all power ballad Scorpions or an all power ballad UFO. Hell, they've probably done it.
Yeah, maybe they have.
Yeah. I wanted to bring up a song that sort of fits in a very strange way with the Typo Negatives and the Alice Coopers maybe and the Danzigs and things like that is Sleeping in the Fire by Wasp.
I've got that on my list. I was so going to bring that up.
God damn.
Yeah. What a song, right?
Tell everyone about it, please.
Oh, well, yeah. So, of course, it's on the very first Wasp album, came out in 1984. And it's one of those songs, just like you said, it comes from a very dark place. And the imagery that it evokes is very hellish and dark and falling angel type of stuff. And, again, here's another case where the vocal, I mean, Blackie Lawless just has one of those very unique voices. And, most of the time we know him as shouting and yelling and being this wild savage guy. And he still is on Sleeping in the Fire, but it's just there's so much pain in his voice. And he's able to do that better than most. I mean, he has got a very unique voice, and it makes that song.
It's his version of what I agree with the term crooning when you think about Glenn and Peter, Typo and Danzig. And it's the same to me as when like a Jim Morrison or an Elvis or that type of a Johnny Cash, where they're weeping and moaning but they're singing. So it's a croon or heartfelt thing. But Blackie's talking about Lucifer's magic.
Yeah.
And it's more about it's a love song of some kind of, I don't know the lyrics, but it's I want to say it's a love song, but it's probably a death infatuation or someone got hurt.
Yeah.
Someone really got hurt. And maybe he's trying to conjure up a memory or something like that. Sleeping in the Fire by Wasp.
Yeah.
it's a mofo.
Yeah, that's a great, great, great song. That whole album is solid, but yeah, we're talking about ballads today. So, but the fact,
I'm sorry to interrupt. Is there another Wasp ballad? Did he ever do anything else? Blackie, I mean, Wasp,
yeah,
right, that did anything close to that?
I'm sure there is, but I'll be honest, I kind of stopped paying attention to Wasp after the first two albums, if I'm being entirely honest. And
That sounds like me and Motley Crue,
yeah,
but
but I know a lot of people that love some of the later stuff, Headless Cross and Crimson Idol. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a song that sort of fits that mold elsewhere in the Wasp catalog. I'm just not aware of it.
yeah, and I'm sure that there's even things that just sans power ballad that would kick my ass, that would sound awesome, but I just never, for whatever reason, got past the Last Command kind of thing.
Yeah, same here. I probably owe it to myself to at least pick up Crimson Idol, and I think it's called the Headless Cross. There's a Black Sabbath album.
Yeah,
Headless,
same title of that.
Headless Cross, Headless Children. No, the Wasp album, I think it's called Headless Children, maybe.
Well, that's heavy, but decapitated children just sounds like a Cannibal Corpse thing, and not a Wasp thing.
Well,
we may be jacked up. We may need our Geritol to recall what it is we're talking.
Admittedly, I stopped paying attention to Wasp after those first couple of records.
Maybe we should make a pact and catch up on some Wasp, because we talked about Wasp a little bit on the show, but Blackie and Wasp definitely get a lot of traction here on Talk Louder, and we are huge fans. But it's interesting. I'm going to throw this up in the air and shoot at it again. Is I don't know of any other Wasp song that would be considered a power ballad.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say they have probably 5 more, and I'm just not aware of them. I'm just ignorant, but
yeah, me too. We're in agreement with that.
Yeah, but
that you're ignorant. And I'll wear the sign around, I'll wear the hat that says, and I'm ignorant too.
The dunce cap, yeah. Mm-hmm. We'll pass it back and forth. But yeah, I'm glad we got Sleeping in the Fire into this conversation, because that song is just man, that's a chilly one, man. It's a creeper.
Yeah, I feel like I love that description too. I feel like it's the power ballads that are chilly are the ones that I like.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier. Again, I don't want to denigrate any of the quote unquote hair metal bands that had power ballads in the 80s, but some of them could come across as pretty manufactured, and the chilly ones that we're talking about seem to come from a deeper place. They seem to come from a deeper, darker spot somewhere within, that's wasn't written to get on the radio, wasn't written to get a certain demographic to buy the album. It was written because the person strongly felt these emotions and needed to get them out. And you look at a song, like I said, Borderline by Thin Lizzy. I mean, Phil's basically just looking in the mirror and he's kind of, he's looking at himself and he's feeling low down. He feels like a drunk. He feels like he's wasting his life. He feels like, he's never going to amount to anything. This is as good as it gets. It's a low, wallowing kind of, perspective. And that stuff really grabs you when it's done well. It's so much more so than Baby Broke My Heart last Saturday night,
Yeah, that doesn't work. And I think that kind of stuff, like the phrase you just said, is more, I'm not even disrespecting, but that's a very good way to describe the quick go-to power ballad on an 80s hair metal type of a song or album. No disrespect, but Every Rose Has Its Thorn is My Baby Broke My Heart last Saturday night.
Yeah, and but I've interviewed Bret Michaels numerous times, and he's told me the story about writing that song, and people may think that it's overplayed and it maybe sounds of a certain time period, but he wrote that from a place of sincere heartbreak, you know.
I believe it, but because it's Poison and they're a party band,
Yeah.
kind of one of those like, what you did, what, you know, it's kind of this wedge stuck in the middle of, you know, this like chartreuse, hot pink, bubblegum chewing, spitting, whiskey guzzling headband, you know, hair Aquanet kind of, you know what I mean? And then what? It's like, I thought you don't care about having your heart broken because you're a heartbreaker, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, I think that it can open your demographic a little bit. Like you started saying at the top of the episode, I think that it was by industry standards there for a hot minute. It was you had to go that route if you were that kind of a band. You know, Whitesnake, I think, did a really good job with the so-called power ballad. I think Is This Love is super sappy and has a lot of dripping cheese, you know, river kind of thing. But he's a crooner. He can sound really sad. He's a British blues singer, and he always has been. But he's a great, like, kick-ass, like almost metal, like a Dio kind of a powerful power metal. He could be a power metal singer.
Yeah.
And I've always loved Coverdale's voice, but you know, I think that if you go way, way back to when he was right out of Deep Purple, and when he got Whitesnake going in the earliest inception of Whitesnake, which was like an entire other band. His version of a power ballad would be just like a boogie blues, just pulled way, way, way back. And I don't, those songs are coming to mind right now, but on is it Slide It In that has Sykes on it?
Yeah.
Okay, so that era, like mid 80s.
Yeah.
What was they had Slow and Easy. They had Slide It In. I'm trying to think of I want to say there's some kind of a power ballad on Slide It In. It's just I'm just missing it right now.
Is it Love Ain't No Stranger?
Ooh, that's it.
It's kind of that's a bit of a rocker, but it does kind of have a ballady sort of feel to it.
Yeah, maybe it's a put it this way. He always wrote something with love in it about every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So you can't.
He's the classic Playboy kind of guy.
Yeah, he's really good. He's a hell of a songwriter.
Yeah.
But I think that he's singing about the blues because he's singing about a lot of heartbreak. You know, Danko Jones's version of a power ballad is like, if you want to know how to play the blues, get yourself a woman. So he doesn't do power ballads, but it's very much Coverdale by way of lyric.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up Coverdale because I've always been a sucker for that song, Is This Love? And it was just so sappy and sugar coated. And it came out in the later 80s, and it was all over the radio, and the video was, you know, real moody. And of course, Coverdale plays the part to the T.
Well, it was on the record, you know, that came out in like 87 or 88, I believe, when you had the new band, and that's the Hit Machine. That had, they had Crying in the Rain. It had, these are just amped up blues songs.
Yeah.
You know?
But I've always liked that song, Is This Love? That's
Here I Go Again. Here I Go. That was on there. Here I Go Again. Yeah. So
but yeah, he's another one, again, just kind of like UFO. I keep going back to UFO and the Scorpions because they're kind of the masters of this whole thing. But Coverdale is very well suited to that type of song as well. And again, you know, he's got a very unique and fantastic voice for it. And I think that is what pushes it over the edge. I think, if you took Is This Love and you took Coverdale's voice out of it and just left the music and a different singer, it wouldn't have the same impact. It's that husky voice that makes you feel what it is he's saying.
Interesting. I like this game. Think about this. I love where you are with this, but I automatically started to think about, I wonder, you're talking about his husky voice, his grit, and his grind, and he's emoting, like, as you mentioned, is kind of a must in this topical thing that we have. But if you know who I think would work and might not work as well, if you were to take either Klaus and Mina or Phil Mogg and put them on Is This Love, I think Phil would win. I think Phil Mogg would win that over Klaus, which is really weird because I'm not trying to start a wrestling match here or anything, but Phil has his thing, but he's not Klaus.
Right.
And Klaus is kind of, this is where I might get shot at, because it's all your opinion and what you feel and your preference. But
yeah,
Klaus might be a better singer than Phil by way of technique and range. And then arguably maybe Klaus and Coverdale have a similar range and techniques and style, but I still think Phil, who's like the guy at the bar, he's like the guy in the alley, you know what I mean, smoking a cigarette under the gaslight kind of thing. He's out there hanging out with the gangs, right? I think he would fit on Is This Love better than Klaus for some weird reason. It was just a comic book moment I had where you could switch singers for a second.
Yeah, but you're kind of shuffling the deck a little bit, and I see where you're going. But you have to keep in mind too that the deck you're shuffling is comprised of great singers. So
oh my God, yeah.
And whichever card you pull is going to work.
Yeah, Phil being the wild card here because he's a little bit more rough and tumble, I think, than Klaus or Coverdale, because Coverdale's not classier or anything, but he's like more of a ladies' man, kind of this playboy. You call him a playboy.
Yeah.
And Klaus is just a conduit of like tone. Right, he has his way. All three are completely different, not necessarily interchangeable. But it's interesting that I would take, the guy in the leather jacket, put him into just proverbial, just as a throw up a Phil Mogg, and he's like the regular guy, into the Playboy's shoes to sing "Is This Love." I think that he would fit better than Klaus. For some weird reason, I don't know. It's a weird thing to think of, but that was fun. That was fun for me to think. Yeah, fun for me to fantasize about interchangeable singers. What about I want to ask you about this. So Van Halen and Power Ballad. Go. What do you know about that?
I'll Wait is my favorite by them.
Okay. Even though that's not pulled way back. It's not slow. It's not slow. It's not pulled back.
Yeah, you're right. But to me, I guess compared to the rest of the Van Halen catalog, it's one of their maybe more mellow and maybe one of their more heartfelt songs, maybe, which is why I point to it. I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a love at first sight. It's kind of he sees a girl and he's like talking her up and I can't deal with that right now. And then he's like saying, well, I at least have photos of you. I can wait. I'll wait I'll wait another day kind of a thing. And it's I like that. It's
Yeah.
a cool window to see that boy meets girl or fantasy type of thing about boy sees girl, and really, I'll just wait for something else.
Little uh, little bit of quick trivia, and then I'll let you go wherever you were going to go with Van Halen.
Yeah.
Do you know who co-wrote that song, I'll Wait?
I don't.
Michael McDonald.
Wow, that's
Doobie Brothers.
interesting.
Doobie Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, he has a co-writing credit on that song, but I read somewhere that he's not credited on every copy of that album. Like a bunch of them went to press without his name on the credits, and then a bunch of them did include his name on the credits. So I went and I looked at the CD that I have, and his name is on my version. So depending on what version you have, he may or may not be credited, but he is in fact a co-writer on that song. I'll Wait.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
So where are you going with Van Halen?
Well, there's a lot of different places you could go with it, but I mean,
Little Dreamer, is that a power ballad?
well, see, I like the way that sounds. Jared's going to get mad at me because I'm looking at I've changed my camera angle for a second to look at this note here. But this is just like a random list of stuff here. Is This Love is on it. Every Rose is on it. Close My Eyes Forever is on it. We should talk about that. Whoever this is calling We Are the Champions of Power Ballad. I'll Be There For You, Bon Jovi. These are all worth mentioning. Love Song by Tesla. Sister Christian by Night Ranger.
Yeah.
Bringing on the Heartbreak by Def Leppard.
Great song.
I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith. I want to go with Dream On. I just think that. When It's Love. How do I know it is love? The Sammy Hagar.
Hagar.
But see, that's kind of that still rocks just as far as Van Hagar kind of went with it. It still kind of rocks. And then there's a couple other Home Sweet Home, Motley Crue. The first one on the list is Beth.
I was going to get to Beth because
November Rain is on here, and Wind of Change is on here. So,
yeah. Beth, I mean, let's talk about that for a minute. Huge hit for Kiss, and a major departure for them at the time. But that song was massive, and you'd have to include that in the all-time great power ballads, I guess. But again, it came along at a time when people weren't putting things so much in a box like they were by the 80s. So it just was known as Kiss's slower song. It wasn't really called a power ballad.
No, and it's a Philharmonic Orchestra with a piano track and Peter Criss, and that's it.
Yeah, and Peter's voice, again, I go back to the voice. I mean, he kind of has that sandpapery Rod Stewart sort of quality to his voice, and that brought that song home, I think. And of course, again, it's the classic boy missing girl. I'm out, rehearsing with the guys, and I won't be home till late kind of thing. But again, his voice.
He's singing a little bit. I'm going to get shot at for this. Okay, if you know me, you know I'm a Kiss freak.
Right.
And I love Peter Criss. There's a lot of Peter Criss songs that I really like.
Yeah.
So don't get mad at me when I go technical on you and say, Peter's a little bit pitchy on Beth. He's a little shaky on his pitch.
Yeah.
And I love it that they left it, or it was the best they could get on the day. He'd rather go do some, have a whiskey than he would, recut a vocal. But dude, Beth was one of those. There's a lot of things about Beth that I like, and a lot of it is the lore. Like Paul Stanley is known to have said, we thought Beth was a throwaway song. We put it as a B-side, not expecting it to. It was the B-side to Detroit Rock City, I think, at one point.
Yeah.
And I think I have the 45 with Detroit on one side and Beth on the other. And they were, this is still Paul talking, and radio guys, DJs were flipping the record and playing Beth just because they wanted another song because they didn't have the record out yet.
Yeah.
Right? They didn't have the full record, so they're playing the 45s, and people were playing Beth, and it blew up.
Yeah.
So they had to do it live. So they had to have the tracks, pre-recorded tracks.
Yeah.
Which I think they probably end up liking that moment for this reason. They got a break. You know, Ace got to go back and have a drink.
Yeah.
And Gene and Paul got to rest their voice and, you know, stand in front of the fan for a moment, right?
Yeah.
But they also, it's a double-sided coin because two sides of the coin. Sorry. It is a song that Gene and Paul, I think, are mad because they didn't have it. They don't make any money off of it. They didn't write it.
Yeah.
They get performance royalties, but no writing credits. No, so there's no mechanicals on it.
It won some sort of award. It was the #1 People's Choice Award song or something. It got a ton of recognition the year it came out. And of course, that put the spotlight on Peter. And of course, Gene and Paul can't stand to give up any of the spotlight. But yeah, it was a massive, massive hit for them. And
well, it's funny because Gene and Paul were the ones who were, come on, guys, Ace, Peter, you guys got to sing too. Don't let us.
Right.
You guys write some songs and throw them in here. Come on. Well, you know, they asked for it. They got it.
Yeah. Yeah, they did.
Yeah, they got it. Come on, we should make solo records. And then, Ace sold 2. Yeah, no more solo records.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Funny. I got another one, a song called Don't You Ever Leave Me by Hanoi Rocks. I've always liked that song, and I think some of it, it's a great song, but some of it is because I have memories attached to it. And the first time I really heard it was I was hanging out with our buddy Houston Richardson, and he was, I think at the time, he was renting out the garage at Wendy Wad's house or something. He was kind of living in this converted garage, and I used to always go over there, and he had a side door that allowed you to enter his living space without walking through the house proper, right? And so I'd go over there all the time, and he and I used to write punk rock songs together and all this. Well, so he was always strumming an acoustic guitar. I came over there one time, and he had the Hanoi Rocks 2 Steps from the Move album on vinyl, which I thought was interesting because I didn't really peg Houston for being a Hanoi kind of guy. Although Houston is secretly kind of a hair metal guy. He'll tell you all day long. He loves rap.
Oh yeah, for those of you globally, these are local Austin folk that are pretty much legendary around our parts.
Yeah, and Houston's known for, being, king of the punk rockers around here.
Yeah, and Wendy was actually in the Skate Nigs for a little while, and she's one of the scene people around here. Yeah. And Houston is, as far as I know, still doing it and ready to do it some more, and has had cancer, and he's this like kind of hero guy around here. But
great.
But yeah, he is kind of a hair metal guy.
Yeah.
And but you're scared of him when he walked up. Did you know that he's a line dance teacher?
I didn't know he was a teacher, but I know that he is he's heavy into line dancing, which
he teaches country line dancing, and he's a hardcore punk rock guy.
Yeah. Yeah, he traded in his mohawk for a 10-gallon hat, and he does it.
Well, I think that he had his 10-gallon hat in the closet the entire time. He was singing "Oi, oi, oi."
So, right. Yeah. But anyway, so he had this album, and Hanoi Rocks, 2 Steps from the Move, and there's a track on there called "Don't You Ever Leave Me," and it's a ballad. And he figured out how to play the guitar part. So, I'd go over there and we'd be writing punk rock songs together. And then he would, whenever he wanted to take a break and play something a little, downshift, if you will, and play something a little more mellow on the acoustic guitar, it sounded perfect it was made for an acoustic guitar, right? And he would start playing that song. and then I would do my best to sing along with it and do my best Michael Monroe imitation. But that song always brings back fond memories for me because of that time in the garage hanging out with Houston, and we used to kind of, do that song in our own little way, But it's a great song, great lyrics. Michael Monroe, I'm a big fan of his, and that was Hanoi's stab at it.
Look at your shirt.
Oh yeah, I'm wearing my
Yeah.
Michael. I'm wearing a Michael Monroe shirt today.
Yeah, Hanoi Rocks and Michael Monroe get a lot of. There's quite a footprint on Talk Louder.
Yeah,
because dude, I think they should send you a check or something.
Well, yeah, they probably should. I'm going to have someone reach out to Michael or Sammy Yaffa or somebody.
So let's talk about Junkyard for a moment and more of like the class of 89, 88, between 88 and maybe 92 or something. Junkyard had a song on their debut record called Get Your Hands Off My Throat.
Hands Off, yeah.
Hands Off, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's almost coming off as a country song, as one of these sort of like lonesome cowboy kind of a twangy songs. It's got the piano, it's got the slide thing, it's got, I think Earl Slick may have even played slide guitar on that song. But anyway, that is another kind of power ballad that sort of fits in with the Leonard Skinner, Tuesday's gone with the wind, sort of the Southern rock thing.
Yeah.
In the midst of, the LA Guns and the Pussycats and all that sort of like sleazy rock kind of. Junkyard is one of those bands that was more, not so much a Poison Bon Jovi, but more of a Rhino Bucket, Circus of Power. Yet they have this Southern thing, being the origins of Junkyard are a little bit, they're just as much Texas as they are Hollywood.
Yeah, for sure.
And on the first record, they had a song called Texas, and they had a song called Hollywood.
Yeah.
So they know what they're doing, and they know how to write a song like that sounds like what could be some kind of weird honky tonk, but it's a rock song, so it kind of lends itself to power ballad.
I'll go you one better with Junkyard. If you move to their next album, there's a song called "Slippin' Away."
Yeah,
and
I know that one.
Is a great song. They co-wrote that. Do you know who they co-wrote it with? Here's some more trivia.
I don't know.
Steve Earle.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, co-written with Steve Earle, and that song is just great. You talk about how Junkyard kind of has that Leonard Skinner thing, and it really kind of comes through when they slow it down and they kind of get down and dirty and twangy and campfire sounding or whatever.
Yeah.
Slipping Away, dude. That is a great song. It checks all those boxes. And I guess, having it, writing with Steve Earle probably brings something to the table too, because he's one of those kind of guys,
Oh yeah.
But that's
he's the lonesome cowboy on the trail, campfire, howling at the moon, woe is me, kind of a singer-songwriter guy who's from right down the road from where I am right now. He's from San Marcos, Texas, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you may be right. Yeah. I wanted to also bring up, this is the last one I have on my list, and we can keep going if you have others, but I wanted to bring up Patience by Guns N' Roses. I always liked that song when it came out. I thought it was interesting that it starts with Axl Rose whistling. You don't always hear whistling in a song, especially not to start the song. And I just always liked the sentiment in that song because, again, it's something that's very universal. We all have bad days. We all need to look in the mirror and remind ourselves that it's going to be okay. We all need to remind ourselves to just slow down, breathe a little bit, have some friggin' patience, And when it came out, it came out on that Lies EP. So it was a stark contrast to what they had just, put out with Appetite for Destruction, which was all venom and fury and rage and just fury. And then here comes
Aerosmith on speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
literally.
Yeah, exactly. And then here comes Patience, and it's an acoustic number. It's got, Axl Rose's whistling. He's singing in that low register that he does so well. It's just a song about, reminding.
I'm gonna say it again. It's a country song.
It is.
Yeah, it's a country song. I was also gonna say, you mentioned Axl's whistling. That's not necessarily taken from Klaus Meine and Winds of Change either.
Yeah.
But you think about Winds of Change and the intro to Winds of Change, that has the same sort of feel, just less twang.
Yeah.
And Patience does. But I really like those moments in both of those songs with the whistling.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Guns are doing more of a Stones, because the Rolling Stones wrote country songs.
Yes, they did.
Dead Flowers is probably their biggest country moment. The Honky Tonk Woman is a country song. They write country songs.
Yeah.
Very well, actually.
Yeah, they do everything well.
Yeah, you're right.
How much talent can one band have?
Yeah.
But
it's all about the songwriting in the Stones. I mean, they're talented, but it's like organized slop sometimes too.
Yeah. Which is Guns N' Roses.
which is lovable, right?
Yeah. So going back to Patience, I always loved that song. It always, it touches me when I hear it, because it reminds me again of a certain time in my life. And so I feel a little connected to it. But I just heard a version. Chris Cornell just put out an album just a couple weeks ago, and it's his family.
He's not around anymore, so
his family released the record, but and I don't know
I get it.
I don't know if the whole thing is cover tunes or what, but I was in a record store, and the guy was playing it behind the counter, and I heard two songs. One of them was Patience with Chris Cornell singing it, and he does a great job, man. I mean, so good. And then the other one that I heard was Nothing Compares to You, which was Sinead O'Connor. I think it was written by Prince, but Sinead had a massive hit with it. But Cornell does the Guns N' Roses song, Patience, and he does it really well. That's just a great song.
Yeah. So I would hate myself if I didn't talk about Elton John. When you think about the word power ballad, or the phrase, or whatever, and you go into the 70s, it was still power ballad. Someone Saved My Life Tonight could have been done by Whitesnake.
Yeah.
So this has been, our topic today is a great one, because it's been going on since the dawn of rock.
Yeah. Which was one of the points I wanted to make.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Elton, and I should probably say Bernie Taupin, his lyricist for decades, was really good about sort of a cosmic cowboy vibe of lyricism. There's one song, and the title is a sentence. It's called A Bullet in the Gun of Robert Ford, I think is what the title of the song is.
Okay.
And it's about, I want to say it's about the killing of Billy the Kid, or something like that. My cowboy lore is off. It sort of escaped me, but that song is incredible. I think that there's a record called Tumbleweed Connection that has some country sort of ballad things on it. But let's face it, everybody knows Elton and can probably pick 10 songs that would fit under power ballad just from an artist like that.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that we've sort of covered, I guess we're kind of wrapping up here. There is so much from every artist. You could say the Beatles wrote power ballads. You could say, I mean, start with the Beatles, then go to Black Sabbath, and we end up with Blackie Lawless. You know what I mean? We go, we would go from dark to light to. I mean, Bryan Adams could have done "Is This Love."
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Bryan Adams knows how to write a power ballad. He's a Canadian pop star.
Yeah.
From the '80s, who wrote War Machine with Kiss.
Yeah.
Which is not a power ballad.
Not to be confused.
No, but at the same, I don't know. It might be fun to try to write a power ballad called War Machine.
War Machine. Let's put some acoustic guitars and some piano on it and see what happens.
Call it a power ballad, right? Acoustic War Machine sounds like a bad idea. I mean, the song War Machine by Kiss played on acoustics doesn't sound. I think they did that, didn't they? Kiss went out and did an acoustic tour, and I think they were taking requests, and some dill rod said War Machine, and they probably played it on acoustic, and I was like, no, please don't play heavy metal like that. You know, it's like it's like doing Tease and Pleasing on acoustic with no drums. It does, you know, that's not sleaze rock. That doesn't work. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
You know, people think, not to toot my horn here, but people might think that Queen of the Nile is a power ballad.
That song's a rocker, man.
Well, that's interesting because the lyrics are very power ballad.
The lyrics are, the presentation is not.
Well, it's not outlaw.
No, it's not. Well, yeah, okay.
You know
but
it's
not. But it's not Promise the Moon either.
No, it's not. That's definitely a power ballad. So it feels like a Hammer, I guess, would have been the go-to song.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
I think the point here is that, you know, we're calling the episode Power Ballads just to have a catchphrase that people will recognize. But I think the point that we've made today is great songs are great songs, and they span decades. And there was such a thing as power ballads in the 70s, the 60s, the 50s. They just weren't called power ballads. I think that term came to prominence in the 80s. But a good song is a good song. And even though, you know, you and I are a little more partial to the heavy stuff, the hard rocking, you know, screaming demon, fist in the air, kind of rock and roll. But I mean, who among us doesn't like to slow it down once in a while and hear something that actually, you know, touches your heart or gives you goosebumps, or, you know, and that's what we're talking about today. The ones that do it well do it very well. And we just wanted to take some time today to put the spotlight on, you know, this type of song, wherever it may land on the calendar, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 2000s, whatever. And there's a lot of artists that you might not associate with power ballads that actually do them quite well if you dig deep enough into their catalog. So, yeah, good topic today. A lot of good song titles and back and forth. That was fun. Let's move on to our shot of rock and roll. My shot of rock and roll for this episode is the story behind this picture. And for those of you who are listening and not watching, we are displaying a photograph that I have of a guitar pick. It's a yellow guitar pick with the name Blackie Lawless inscribed on it. And it was given to me by Blackie at a concert in San Antonio in 1984. It was December 1984. It was right around Christmas. It might have even been Christmas Eve. It was December 23rd, 24th, somewhere in there, right at 1984. And WASP was touring their first album. I was a big fan. They were playing a small club, and I know you're going to jump in here in just a second, Jason. They were playing a club called Daddy's in San Antonio, which is where you saw. Am I right? Is this where you saw Metallica with Raven?
That is correct. I saw Raven with Metallica supporting. That would have been the week of the last week of August in 1983.
So okay, about a year before. So I'm at Daddy's in December of 1984, watching a WASP concert, and I'm a big fan. I love that first record. So I go to the show. It's a small club, and I'm wearing. I took a plain white T-shirt, and I took a black Sharpie, and I painted basically a portrait of Blackie Lawless on the front of this shirt. And the contrast worked very well because Blackie had that jet black hair with those white streaks kind of dyed into it, and the heavy eyeliner and everything. So I drew this portrait that took up my entire chest on the front of this white T-shirt, and I wore it to the concert.
You have balls to wear a white T-shirt.
Well, I couldn't draw a picture of Blackie Lawless on a black T-shirt.
Well, you gotta get paint pens, or I guess
back
it
was
1984,
man.
Yeah,
I don't
me and Mike Solis used to paint her on shirts with white latex house paint.
There you well, okay. So I was going the cheap route. I was doing.
No, I love it. I love it. You got balls. Carry on.
So I go to the gig, and I'm wearing this shirt that I made, and I work my way all the way up to the very front. I'm literally standing in front of Blackie Lawless. He's got the chain link mic stand right. I mean, my nose is touching this mic stand. And I just held my ground and rocked out for the whole show from right there in the front. And at one point, Blackie looks down and sees me and sees the shirt that I'm wearing. And I can just see his eyes light up when it catches his attention. And he points at me and he kind of gives me this look like, that's awesome, dude. And he handed me this pick that we're looking at. And of course, at that time, he was the bass player in WASP, not the guitar player. So he was using that pick on stage. And I think he enjoyed my shirt. He liked the fact that I was a fan and I was dedicated enough to draw him on my shirt and push my way down to the front. And so my reward was this Blackie Lawless guitar pick.
Awesome. Man, that's a good one. I painted this, I may still have it, black shirt, painted, it's got a Metallica logo. It's got James underneath it. He's got the flying V, and he's throwing the bird, right? He's flipping off, and he's wearing the bullet belt. And I painted this with white latex paint. I think I used Scotch tape to make a sort of a stencil to make the lines tight. But almost freehand, right? And it's it's a re-portrait kind of from a picture from a magazine, a black and white photo of James. And I think my brother Randy wore it to that shirt, which ironically was February 21st of 85. That's like 2 months later.
Yeah.
After you saw and WASP was supposed to be the headliner.
Yeah.
Of the show that I'm talking about. It was ended up being Presence, Armored Saint, and Metallica, and it was supposed to be Armored Saint, Metallica, WASP.
Right.
So
right.
WASP canceled for whatever reason. So WASP had just gone through the territory.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Anyway, so Randy wore this shirt that I painted, and after the show, this is the show that has all kinds of controversy about the message James left on my mom's answering machine. It's the same show, February 21st, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we'll have to talk about that again sometime. It's a crazy story. So Randy's wearing that shirt that I painted around the venue, and I hadn't seen Randy all day, all week, right?
Right.
And so he tells me the story the next day. It's like Kirk Hammett was out walking around in the crowd after the show, and he bumps into Randy, and he sees the shirt and goes, James is going to want that. Don't let James see that. Kind of a thing.
Wow.
So it's, I don't know, similar in some ways.
Yeah.
That's not, is that a dead art, that fanboy thing where you make your own shirt? It's like, well, I don't have a WASP shirt or I don't have a Metallic shirt. I'm going to make my own kick-ass shirt and wear it to the show. No, I'm going to look like no one else. That's a thing. That's like going to war. That's like your war paint, right? That's your individualism. That's your individualism, right? Yeah.
Back then, it was kind of like you didn't have the internet, so you couldn't just go online and order a WASP T-shirt. Like you had to buy it at the gig. I mean, bands didn't even have their own website or storefronts online. Yeah, I mean, there was no online.
No, you went to the hippie store and bought concert shirts, or
you bought it at the gig.
That's right.
So what I would, I was making homemade shirts because I hadn't yet had a chance to see these bands in concert and buy a proper shirt at the venue. So if you wanted to show your allegiance to a band, you made your own shirt. And I think the shirt kind of thing, the art of making your own shirts has kind of gone away. But the thing that I love seeing these days, and I don't think this will ever go away, is the homemade jackets. And I know you've got a few and I've got a few, and that's where people get to kind of fly their freak flag. It's like, check out my jacket, dude. It's very unique and individual to me.
Yeah, it's well known now that that's called battle jacket.
Yeah, I call it the war hide.
There you go. That's a good one. I like that, because that's the name of your new metal band, right?
War hide, yeah. All right, I got a quick one for you. Shot of rock and roll. Very random, out of the blue. What is your favorite Rod Stewart song?
That is almost impossible. Because I love the old, 70s. In the 70s, I would go to the skating rink. And with, maybe my brother Randy, maybe my older brothers too. And, the DJ there would be spinning records. And he'd play Kiss and Elton and Alice and Rod Stewart and early disco. Like mashups. Sometimes, there would be mashups that they'd send out to radio stations, and this DJ would have some of that stuff. And those were mainly the disco songs, because they would put all that stuff together so the DJ could have a bit of a break at like a dance club, right? Well, when you're 8, 9, 10 years old and you're at the skating rink, you're not thinking like that, and you don't know what that is, but they were always fun. My point is Rod Stewart's hits were on AM radio, and I would hear them at the rolling rink.
Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily say I had a Rod Stewart record yet, but Maggie May was a big one, and Losing You was a big one. But I think I'm gonna go with You Wear It Well.
Ooh.
Which is like this almost like hillbilly country thing when you think about it. It's got fiddle on it. It's acoustics. It's acoustic vibe. It's very much like probably written within the same half hour that Maggie May was written, because it just feels like that. It's got acoustics, fiddle, harmonica would fit right in there. It's very home cooking kind of, but it's a rock song. It's a rock song.
Yeah.
It's got some punch. But You Wear It Well. It's been covered by many, many folk.
That is a great song. Maggie May gets me every time.
Oh,
that song. Oh my God.
The story in that is incredible. And I swear it's like that whole like British blues vibe that, the Stones were all up into it. Rod was all up into it. Humble Pie was all up into it. And they wrote those kind of songs. And they were talking about, the lyrics in Maggie May are like a novel, and it's a 3-minute song.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's great. They
could have made a movie out of that song. It's like The Redheaded Stranger. They made a movie out of that. They could have made a movie out of Maggie May.
Yeah.
Just a boy meets girl kind of thing, right?
That song gets me every time. I just got goosebumps just saying the title because it nails me every
Yes.
time. It's such
Yeah.
a great song.
Yeah.
All right, but you're going with You Wear It Well.
I
Very
am.
good choice. That's a great one as well. So, all right, there we have it. Jason's favorite Rod Stewart song. All right,
Today, it's my favorite
today.
Rod song.
Yeah, yeah.
Today.
I'll ask you again tomorrow. We'll get a
Okay.
different answer.
Perfect.
Oh man, great topic today. I really enjoyed talking power ballads, and
Good
a
time.
lot of good stuff came up. That's going to do it for this episode of the Talk Louder podcast. Little reminder: we've got T-shirts and coffee mugs on
Cheers.
our website, talklouderpodcast.com. You can go there and get your coffee mugs, T-shirts. Again, leave us your comments, leave us your likes on YouTube and Facebook. Subscribe. And tell your friends they can follow us on iTunes and Spotify as well. That's going to do it for this go around. I'm Metal Dave, my co-host Jason McMaster. We will see you next time on the Talk Louder podcast.